Good morning, everyone. Dr. Joseph Ivey, your Director of Alumni Relations here. Welcome to the Cup with Joe and Jamie podcast. I've got soon-to-be Dr. Jamie McKinnon with me, third quarter student, and Dr. Ankur Tayal, who I'll introduce shortly. We'll be interviewing him for the next 20 to 30 minutes, talking about things we think we know or we ought to know, but maybe we don't know. Look forward to broadcasting this podcast with you monthly on a regular basis, and hope to see you soon, both live and or in the replay.
All right. So Dr. Tayal, if you could give us just a brief introduction about yourself and maybe some of your background and something you do outside of chiropractic.
Sure. Dr. Ankur Tayal, LifeWest grad 2009, in practice I associated for about 11 months after, two jobs, one quick associateship, 4 months, then another one, 11. Then opened my own practice with my friend, Matthew Kittleson, a fellow chiropractor. Did that for 5 years. Then I left. He bought my practice, and I came here to start running the philosophy and the business department here at LifeWest. Other notables, I guess, for this conversation, I have my MBA. I got it from the University of Victoria. That was a lot of fun. And it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
A little bit of background. We're going to have some fun today, and with every podcast on the Cup with Joe and Jamie show. So feel free to laugh with us, share some insights, and in this case, give Dr. Tayal some giggles when you see him in the hallways.
I also want to thank Joe for inviting me and you for having me, Jamie. Joe and I went to school together, so hopefully it's obvious that that we do like to have a good time. And, you know, we're here for the listeners. We're here for the students. So let's do this.
Perfect. We like to hear that. So one thing that I think of a lot, some of us, well, most of us, I guess, have had Dr. Tayal as a teacher, and he came into our first quarter forum one time and talked for about like 15 to 20 minutes just about like basic finance. And I think that that's like a really important side of chiropractic. So if you could give us some insight into like basic finance, what the last 6 months of school looks like, and kind of what you should do to plan for your future outside of school.
Sure. Okay. And I'm going to go fast because we agreed on this beforehand. So write this down, listen to it over and over and again, do whatever you need with it. But seven categories in basic finance that we talk about on day one, and we hammer it into you by the time you graduate. So I also understand that our audience here are for the people that are in the middle, you know, that you might have had me at the beginning, you'll get me at the end, but we're missing the middle touches. So so here are some reminders and some insights and some new layers to things that we talked about. First off, personal finance, personal expenses, your rent, your mortgage, your groceries, what you need to live off of. You have your practice expenses as well. That's two, your practice expenses. You don't have those yet, but you will in the future. So I think part of this conversation is planning for that. Then you have your savings plan, which you want to build for retirement. Do you start today? Do you wait till you graduate? We can talk about that. You have your debt. That's very important. That's number 4. You have your debt, which is very important to understand. Non-negotiable to understand the concept of debt. We're not going to do the thing that we used to do, which is I'll deal with that later, right? That's what Jamie and I were agreed upon, where we're like, you know, some of the people, I agree that I admit that I was in that boat. I'll deal with it later. We're not doing that anymore. At least we're not encouraging that. So let's get a handle on our debt. Taxes. You're not paying taxes today. You'll pay them one day. Let's become aware, know, and accept our taxes. We've got your emergency fund. And then you got that 7th one, which is called the big rocks. And I've talked about the big rocks, so you know the big rocks, the things that you plan for, the things that you save up for. So to answer your question, what do I like to do? I like to play music. I just bought the big rock that I've been talking about for the last 3.5 years. I bought Slash's guitar, the Gibson Les Paul. I should have shown it to you, but I came to school today to do this. But yeah, those are the 7 categories. And personal finance, that's something that I want you to learn today. Debt understanding is something I want you to learn today. Savings, taxes, office expenses, maybe we can do that tomorrow. Maybe we can do that today. But you tell me how you want to guide the conversation, and I'm happy to talk about whatever the finances are necessary, because until you understand all 7 aspects, as all 7 categories, we're not ready.
Okay, so I think like personally as a third course student, like so 3rd to 9 is kind of what we're targeting. I like to think that I have a handle on my personal finances, but sometimes I think everyone does. I think being that we see all these seminars that we should go to and stuff like that. So I know that that's an investment. How would that fit into those 7 categories?
So I'm just going to share my screen here, and this is what we've talked about in the past. We have personal expenses, big rocks, emergencies, savings, debt, business expenses, and taxes. So this is quarters 3 to 9. This is quarters 3 to 9 here. And we're going to focus, okay, these are imperative to understand. Personal, this is your rent, your groceries, your basics, you know, like your Netflix, if that's what you're into. That's what we're talking about here. Your basic living. You want to minimize this. You want to live on a student budget. You want to be as conservative as possible. You want to be reasonable, nothing greedy, nothing too extravagant. The big rocks in this regard, we're going to, I talk about how it's important for me to go home for Christmas to hang with my nephews, or I've been saving up for the last 3 years to buy this guitar that I just bought. Well, I've wanted it since I was 20. I've wanted it for 20 years. I just started saving up for it 3 years ago. And what I did, I just put $100 a month away for 3 years. I just dropped $3.5 grand. No big deal. It was kind of effortless. It was amazing. So for you as a student, your big rocks are, okay, travel and experiences if you need them. But I'm also talking about seminars here. This is where you want to understand that sometimes, I'll say it, sometimes some of the education comes outside of the classroom. And sometimes you can get it for free and sometimes you have to pay for it. Don't go crazy, but sometimes that's a reality. What's the message here? We just want you to plan for it.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
I mean, what you said crazy. I mean, should I be planning towards, one seminar a quarter, once a year for that matter? And should these seminars be focused on technique or business, or like how should I determine as a third to ninth quarter student what seminar might be relevant for me at that time and space?
Good question. I'm going to be annoying for a second, and I'm going to tell you what to avoid. I want you to avoid the FOMO, right? That everybody else is doing it, so I feel like I have to do it as well. 100%, and I might sound even like a hypocrite because I feel like I might have even set the record for seminars when I was a student. You were there, Joe.
Yep.
But I also wasted a ton of money. That's my point here. Like because of cultural issues like FOMO, fear of missing out, and like, oh, I got to just learn everything. Well, now here I sit on the other side. I'm like, oh, we do okay. We do okay here, and the resources are available. So if we're seeking it out on evenings and weekends, we could probably even seek it out here with our mentors. And then you figure out what you need to supplement. If you're really, really into Gonstead, you're all in on Gonstead, then go to the Gonstead seminars. Same goes for whatever your technique is. If you feel like what you're learning in the philosophy classroom is good, but it's not enough, then you're the right candidate to go to a philosophy seminar. If you're looking for business and what we're doing here isn't enough, which I can appreciate, then go to business seminars. But if you really think that you need them all, then what I submit is that you're scratching the surface, you're sprinkling, and you're not actually learning as much as you could. And what I want to caution you from being from one to potentially another is don't be one of those seminar junkies, right? Just for the sake of going to a seminar. Don't do that. So read between the lines of what I'm saying. You have to kind of figure it out, but those are some insights. Jamie, do you have any insights there?
No, as somebody who I shadow docs outside of school, I haven't necessarily gone to seminars, but I do shadow. So that is another alternative that I think some people, they see the big flashy seminar, which is great. And I value those greatly. I just think that there is ways as a lower quarter student before you're even doing technique, because realistically, like I'm in Div 1, very basic. Until you're done those techniques, I think that you could get the value out of shadowing a doc. And I have never met a chiropractor that's like, no, don't come shadow me. Like,
right. And here's another something that might be unpopular is that seminars, the real education happens on the job. So shadowing is not only costless, but forgive the cliche, it's priceless. It's immense value. Whereas the seminar, and speaking as an educator, it's actually very difficult to learn, especially in this day and age, by just sitting in a room, having somebody just talk at you. That's just not a model that still works. Now, it's still a great way to make money on the other side, like as a seminar teacher. So that's part of the marketing. And you know what? You know who the easiest prime candidate market is? Chiropractic students, years 1 and 2. So let's not be one of those statistics, folks. Let's not be vulnerable. Yeah, I said my piece. Let me just finish this one thought here, and then I'll go back to you, Jamie, because I think you asked this question. What are we saving up for? We're saving up for our first year out. We're saving up for those first 6 months where we need a license, and we need to pay for our board exams as well, not just in the first year out, but throughout. Because the reality is you get the same amount of money every quarter. You don't get more money on a boards quarter. You have to make the money that you had before go and stretch into boards. So if you're, this is the last, let me just highlight those, and we're not going to focus on these. If you have debt right now, I don't need you to borrow more money to pay off your debt later. I just need you to borrow less money. Just let that cancel out. So that's that. You don't have any business expenses and you're not paying any taxes. But what you do have is you have access to a lot of money. I wonder if you need it all. So let's just do that real quick. As I roll over here, this is what you have access to, $11,000 unsubsidized. So at a rate, and I understand it's 0%. So that's it. That's cool. You know, if you can use it, put it aside, maybe that's useful, 0%, use it properly. Don't waste it. That's my point. You get another 6,100. So let's just say that you get 11,000 and 6,100 every quarter. That's going to equal 17,100. So this is what they have access to. Their tuition is 8,880. So what they have left is 8,220 per quarter. And they've seen me do this before. This is a reminder, which is 2740 a month. 2740 a month. We'll just move that away. My submission is that this is what you have access to. So if you can use it intelligently, then do it. If you don't need it all, then borrow less. And when I say using intelligently, I'm just talking 0% interest because it's COVID right now. As soon as the interest rates go back up, only borrow what you need. And that's to accommodate all of this. So if you have 2740, what do you need for rent, groceries, basics, etc.? What do you need for big rocks per month? Don't be greedy. Understand that emergencies are important. And savings, what are you saving for? Boards, license in your first year out. So let me just really quickly finish the first year out discussion so you know what you're putting away for, and then I'll let you do the rest, okay? So first year out, we're talking about 6 months of living expenses. We're talking about a license, and we're talking about boards. So 6 months living expenses at $2,000 a month. No, we're not gonna be $2,000 a month. It's just gonna be your rent. It's just gonna be your rent. So we'll give you $1,000 a month for 6 months. Your license is gonna be $1,200, and boards. What did we say? Boards was 30.
I think they're
500,
yeah. I
4,500.
think it's like the first one's 700-ish, and then they kind of vary from there.
Well, the
You're right,
boards
one.
required for each state and or province. Is
Yeah, and
different,
country.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So California, for example, we have to take all 4 boards, and we have to take jurisprudence and physiotherapy.
And
I'm
then
gonna give you. Yeah, go ahead.
and then Canadians, just be mindful. If you do, I personally am going to be taking advantage of taking both American and Canadian boards while I'm in school, because I don't really want to have to remember all that science outside of school, just all the little details. So if you do that, then I think Canadian boards, I could be wrong, but I think they're around 1,200 for, is it 1,200 each or 1,200 total? Anchor, you could probably touch on that.
Yeah, that's each.
Each, yeah.
That's each. The third one's going to be probably closer to 17.
Yeah.
So you'll be running 42, 44, 4,500. So same thing.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is that you might be looking to put away $1,000 a quarter of your 2,740 that you have access to and live off the other 1,740. That's totally reasonable. That's quite okay. But that's an insight that we might not have considered. Did I get that right, Jamie?
Yeah, I think that's bang on. Especially like in your last year, because if you look at, so yeah, you said 12,200. So if you're saving 1,000 per quarter and you start that in your second year, you'd be pretty close to being able to cover all of that.
And plus, if you work, study, if you get some side gigs during school, which I recommend doing, I know that's something I did while I was in school, that only adds to your piggy bank, right? And let's face it, once you graduate, once you sign the dotted line or you receive that piece of paper saying you're now a doctor of chiropractic from Life West, the funding from federal aid stops, right? There's no magic last check or severance, if you will, if you're talking about like a job.
Absolutely. And not only that, I have on good authority, I've just discovered that all of our scholarships were not handed out this quarter because we did not have enough applicants. I'm not even joking. I'm
Really?
not even joking. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. This
So
is
give
a
me an example of
fact.
an of a scholarship that's, to me, easy money.
The Commitment to Excellence Scholarship
Tell me about that.
is $1,000 every quarter handed out to 5 different students. Sometimes we get 13 applicants, 14 applicants, we can only give out 5. That's an unfortunate reality. Sometimes we get less than 5 applicants. That's what happened this quarter, and we only gave out less than 5. It's a tragedy.
And this is
Absolute
money that the
tragedy.
school is putting up. Um, it's free money. You submit an
It's free
application.
money.
A
Yeah,
lot
I
of these
don't
are
actually
one
know where it
pagers,
comes
right?
from, but yeah, I don't know exactly where it comes from, but it's these $5,000 every quarter. Absolutely. So I highly, highly, highly encourage students to seek that out. There are minimum requirements, but it's not crazy. It's just show that you're committed to excellence in some way, and that'll go a long way.
Yeah, and if any students are looking scholarship wise, reach out to Student Life. They're the best bet. I know that a lot of them do send out emails. We get bombarded with emails, I understand, but
Yeah.
definitely looking at some of those scholarships. Canadians, I know there's some that you can apply for as well. And I mean, work study is great. I'm doing it right now. So
Yeah.
what would your clinic kind of cost look like if you were to say leave school 6 months out, you start looking at buying into something? Just like a rough estimate. You can use the Bay if you'd like.
Wonderful. I can use the what? Sorry.
Like the Bay Area if you'd like.
Oh, the Bay. The Bay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So one of those 7 categories are office expenses. So let's do that. If I was to graduate and I was to open my own practice, then what would that look like? Or if I was to join a practice, what would their office expenses look like? How can I get a handle on what the basics are? Sure thing. So we are talking about things like rent, which is obviously, not obviously necessarily, but always going to be your big one, as is salary for employees. In this discussion, we're going to separate you, the doctor. We're talking about the people that work for you. So just we'll park that for a second. We're talking about the people that work for you here. And then what else do you need? You need insurance, you need licensing, you may have some marketing costs, you may have some bank fees, you may have bookkeeping, accounting, and legal. That's the fun, boring stuff that we do talk about, that we have to. Joe, am I missing anything important? Office supplies, which is minimal, and I like to do miscellaneous.
Yeah, miscellaneous. I mean, office supplies, softwares, hardware.
Software, yeah, good call, software. Oops. You can't do miscellaneous not at the bottom, though.
Is that how they spell it in Canada?
No.
No.
What was it? Software. Computers. We'll just call it.
Sure.
Computers includes the web and the serving and the hosting and all of that fun stuff. As you'll see, it gets less important when we get into the finer details. But we're going to say Bay Area. So Bay Area, it all matters what we're talking about price per square foot. So you, the student, I invite you to look up price per square foot in your area and, figure out your location, because it's obviously, that is obvious, a location-based discussion. And the price of a square foot in Kansas or Davenport, Iowa is going to be a lot less than a price in the Bay Area or in Manhattan. Or for Canadians, Vancouver and Toronto are the big dogs, and Saskatchewan, probably not, right? You tell me, Jamie.
Yeah. Not a whole lot. I think you're pretty safe out there.
Not a whole lot. In fact, we just did this the other day in class, and one of my students came up with a little chart, and they had it listed. So you might find price per square foot per year. You might find price per square foot listed per month. But let's just use a simple example. If we're talking about 1,000 square feet, and we're talking about the Bay Area, we're going to do something like $4,500. Okay, that's rent. It might be 4,000, it might be 6,000, it could be more if it's nicer. But for reference, I was in Victoria, 1,000 square feet, and it was $3,000 a month. So $3 per square foot per month, which is $36 per square foot per year. You'll find them listed in both. So 1,000 square feet, relatively nice. We could have got cheaper for a less nice area. We paid for A little fancy, no big deal. So we're going to give you in the Bay Area $4,500 for rent. We're going to give you 1.5 staff because it's a 1.5 doctor office. So we'll give you 1.5 people of staff, 1 full-time, 1 part-time. So that's going to be another $4,500 in salary. Your insurance, there's going to be 2, 1 malpractice and 1 business liability.
And these are mandatory, just putting that out.
These are the mandatory ones. Yeah, you'll have a couple other ones and we'll explain to you what it means. This is 1.5 employees, but this is the quick version. So this is monthly costs. These are monthly costs. So I'll highball it and it's going to be about $250. Licensing is, what did I just say? $1,200 for the first license. It's going to be less in the subsequent times, but we'll just pretend that it's always going to be $100 a month. Your marketing, you might be, let me just write down, there's a chiropractic license and there's a business license. We'll go slower when we're in class, but we're talking fast here, you know that. So marketing, you might have memberships to organizations, you might do meetings, and you might do shows/gigs. That's how I like to talk. You might do a spinal screening or you might do a health talk or whatever. But that's going to run you how much it might run you. It used to run us about $500 for our Toastmasters membership, our Chamber of Commerce, our BNI. And then we would take people out to lunch, especially healthcare professionals, because they saw the same people that we saw, and we could solve some of their problems, they could solve some of our problems, and we just like doing shows and gigs because that's what you got to do. Bank fees are going to be about 3.5%, 2.5 to 3.5, well, 1.5 to 3.5%. So because you collected $30,000 that month, that means that you're paying $450 in bank fees. That's 1.5%. Bookkeeping, accounting, legal, $3,000 a year. So we'll give you $250 a month, excuse me. Office supplies, $100. This is going to be $250, and miscellaneous, who cares? You add them all up. This is Bay Area. This is a little fancy. This is 11.2. 11.2. You can do it for a lot less. Can you see how of the 11.2 that we're talking about, your rent and your employees are 9,000 of the 11.2? So yeah, you can get a lot cheaper place to work, and you don't need staff until you need staff, until you're making enough money to necessitate having more staff. So now all of a sudden your costs are way less because you didn't hire anybody yet. You're down to 6,700 with an inflated miscellaneous cost and an inflating accounting cost and an inflated marketing cost. You're down to 5,000. This is in the Bay Area, or maybe you're down to 6,000 in the Bay Area. So if you want to do it for cheap, you can. If you want to do it for a little nicer, you can. If you want to be more extravagant, you can. But what the next discussion becomes is, what are my fees? How many people does it require for me to be able to sustain this? And what's my marketing plan to do that? Am I right, Jamie? Are those the next questions?
Yeah, that's pretty close to almost all of it. I think I have one little question left. So rewind when you were in school, knowing what you know now, what do you wish you would have done differently?
Okay, great. So I gave you the one. I wouldn't have done as many seminars. I'm an advocate for the good seminars. How do you know which ones the good ones are? That's a little tougher, and we can talk about that more if we want to. But I wouldn't have spent as much money on seminars. I would have
spent more time in the classroom.
Yes, Joe. I would have spent more time in the classroom. Yeah. Here's the honest truth. I feel like I did it right, and this isn't bragging by any stretch, but Joe can attest to this. And this is a cliche. I'm a work hard, play hard type of person. I worked my buns off, and I definitely had a good time. So I don't regret having a good time. I don't regret working hard. I regret spending the money where I thought I was working hard, but I wasn't. That's how I'll answer that question.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think that's good advice. Yeah.
I think if any quarter student, right, and preferably earlier, Jamie, third quarter, even first quarter students, how long did this take? 20 minutes? I mean, probably take you an hour, 2 hours to actually put a spreadsheet together that made sense. And Dr. Tayal will give you, if he has one available, a template you can work off of. You don't have to do this every day, let alone every month. I think a reality check in business I look at things as a business owner myself, I look at things on a quarterly basis in preparation. And then I probably spend, 2 or 3 hours at the beginning or in preparation of the beginning of a new year to say, hey, what are we looking forward to for 2021, 2022? So it's not a lot of time invested, but it is pain in the details, right? Writing down each number, making sure it's mostly accurate, if not 100% accurate, right? You're going to be able to determine your existing and then how you're going to grow with this. And this works for students, right? Dr. Tayal, how much have things changed between when you graduated to the next graduating class? All these things still exist.
For
We're
sure.
still going to have rent, we're still going to have salary, right? The fluctuation of price points, cost of living, 3 to 6%. Not a huge lift.
Yeah, and to your point, Joe, not only will I gladly give you this template, I mean, you can see I just whipped this off the top of my head because we do this like several times a quarter. So not only will I gladly give you this template, but it's the homework in the senior year. So it's up to the student whether they want to take it seriously or not. But we'll do the numbers. We'll crunch the numbers together, and we'll be ready. Yeah, if we want to be.
Yeah, and I think knowing a lot of this stuff early on, like we see you all the time, Dr. Tayal, like you are involved in quite a few classes. So knowing that, like you said something my first quarter that I was like, wow, I really need to like hone down on all of this because I just can't be that person that doesn't succeed. I'm very success driven. So you said, you were like, yeah, only like, I can't even remember the number, but it was like 30% succeed, like multi-million-dollar practice success. And I was like, that is not a high number. Like, I don't want to be in that other 70%. So really looking at this stuff now kind of prepares me and makes me basically aware of the goals that I need to have.
Oh, I said I love it. And I think that fire is going to be the difference between being able to do that and not. And then what you actually do because of it, that'll be the cherry on top. So good on you.
Thank you.
Doc, as we wrap, give the students, give the audience quarters 3 through 9, one major push. Give them one gem that you haven't already gone through right now, as they wrap up this podcast, listening to this podcast.
So I hope you can hear my heart here, right? Because I think that 3 to 9 can be the worst. We all know that it's exciting when it's early. And I can share this with you that it's quite hopeful at the end. It actually is. And I get to see you on both sides, and I don't really see you in the middle, but I do see enough, and I have experienced enough to know that it can be the worst. And what I mean is boards. We even talked about boards. We just talked about a financial plan to navigate boards, which is such a nuisance. But at least you have that now. But boards suck, and getting into clinic it can be scary. I've battled with some serious insecurity and lack of confidence going through the clinical experience. And I've seen students do that time and again. So I get it. I get it. So what can I offer to the student in the meantime? That don't forget why you're here. And I get that sounds cheesy. I totally get it, but it works, and get a taste of patient care. Get a reminder of why you're here. You can dissolve the fear by understanding these business concepts that we just did, so that it's not scary, it's attainable. And if you just surround yourself, especially right now, with people, like how you're supposed to say surround yourself with the best. You can't forget that. Just surround yourself with people at this point, like in any way that you can. Remind yourself that this is a people-based profession. That here is another piece of cheese, but it's delicious cheese. Is that chiropractic chose us? It really does, and especially when we could do something else, and we could make more money doing something else, and maybe sometimes it doesn't make any sense. Tough. You're here, and you're probably here for a big reason, and that's bigger than any other of these small things. So that's the best I got for you. But find me anytime, and we can wrap, and we'll do what we can.
That was rad.
Yeah.
Dr. Tayal, Jamie, thanks a bunch for hanging out with us for the last 30 minutes. Audience, quarters, students 3 to 9, this is for you, right? I think you see Dr. Tayal in the classroom. He broke those down in very very concisely in the last 30 minutes. And I hope that you've learned maybe one or two things. And if you didn't, click the replay button here because there's a lot of gems to be had. Hope you join us next month with the Cup of Joe and Jamie podcast. Click the link below to subscribe and or like the video. Thanks a bunch, guys. Take care.